Continuing from the last video, if you don't already have a few items on your stage, go ahead and do so. Make a couple, see if you can change the color of the fill in the stroke just to make sure that everything's sinking in. Now I want to show you something that is very frustrating if this happens to you. So notice everything here is in full color and everything. Sometimes you may all of a sudden discover you're in a view like this and you clicking on this, trying to move it, select it, nothing's happening. There's only like one of all the different items that you can move. So it's very important that you pay attention to this particular thing here. Look up here, and if ever things are going weird, if you notice that you have multiple things listed up here, that's probably the problem. So let me get it back to normal, and all I have to do to get it back to normal is click this back arrow. And now you can see none of that shows up there. And here's how you accidentally get in this mode. If you double click on something, it takes you in this mode. Now this mode is very helpful when you learn about grouping, but if you accidentally end up in it, like I said, it just leads to frustration. So the cure, go up here, click, keep clicking until that disappears. And this thing up here is what's known as a breadcrumb trail. It just lets you know that you're a couple levels deep into the document. Another thing that's helpful to know early on in the program is what if you make a mistake. So I'm going to grab the rectangle tool here and I'm going to click and drag out 3 items. What if I didn't want that last one? I could just simply hit the delete key because it is still selected. That would make it go away. But what if I didn't want this one either? Then you get into the Command Z, which is probably Control Z on a PC. Command Z will back up the very last thing you did. So if I did it one more time, now it's backing up. At first it backed up me erasing it, then it backed up me drawing it. Now if I Command Z again, it'll back up what I last drew. If I do it again and again, and now it took me into this goofy mode here. And so if we back up through that, now I'm back where I was, but I got rid of that. So what if I went too far? Then you hold down the Command and the Shift key and the Z key. So, and actually it's really hold down the Command key, hold down the Shift key, and then tap the Z key, and that will start bringing you forward. And just in case you can't find the shortcuts for that, you can go up to the main menu and you can go edit, and you can do very top item will either be undo or redo. So undo or redo will bring that back. Let's talk a little bit more about selecting things and the 2 different selection tools. So we've already learned that this one up here is your main selection tool. So now that guy's selected, now that one's selected, this one's selected. You can also use it to move things. So just a click and a drag and that gets moved. Click and a drag, now that's moved. You can select more than one thing at a time by holding down the Shift key. So this is selected now. If I hold down the Shift key and select this, now they're both selected. And if I click and drag, now they both move. Other things you can do with the selection tool, let's say we wanted to rotate this item. So if I click, gets this bounding box around it, and then if I put the cursor up near the corner, see how it changes like that? Now if I click and drag, it will rotate it. Now, while we're on this subject, let me tell you what happens if you click on something and you don't see these bounding boxes. So you click on this and you're like, hey, wait a minute, I'm supposed to see bounding boxes. Usually that happens because you accidentally did a shortcut on the computer and you turn them off. So to turn them back on, and you should really spend a lot of time in this particular view menu because there's a lot of things that can go wrong with shortcuts, and typically the view menu is how to fix the things that went wrong. But you can see if I go down here, there's this option here, show bounding box. So if we accidentally turned it off, we just hover the mouse over here, release the mouse, and now the bounding box is back on. Other things that a selection with the bounding box will let you do is resize an item. There's even these little dots in here by default, and if we click on one of those, all of a sudden this changes into a rounded rectangle. Another thing you can do with this selection tool is drag a marquee. So if I click here up near the top left and I drag down to here, any of these objects that are inside of that marquee when I release the mouse will be selected. And so for example, if I hit the delete key, all of those go away. I will Command Z that to bring those back. The other selection tool, it's not used as often, but it's very important, is this direct selection tool. Now it is housed with a couple other things, so I want to make sure that that's the one that's on top. And to make sure that we understand what's going on with this, we're going to come back over here. We're going to go back to the default by clicking here. We're going to bring the fill forward and we're going to select this none option. So what that means is now if I go back to the rectangle tool and I'm just going to draw a couple items, it looks very similar to this, but the difference is this has a white fill on it. This does not. And I'll show you some examples of what I mean by that later. But just to show you what this direct selection tool does is we can pick a piece of this. So if I click right here on what's known as the path, and you can see that I have that little hint there that tells me that I'm on the path. So I click, delete, I just deleted that path. Now there's another component that these things are made of, and that's called anchors. If I click on the anchor, and I hit delete, it will remove this anchor, which is the anchor not only for this path, but the anchor for this path. So now watch what happens if I hit delete. I got rid of two at the same time, and if I hit this one and delete, it pretty much goes away, and I'm just left with like two fragments over here that I can't even see. If I want to get rid of those, I can draw a marquee with this tool and hit delete as well. Not only can I select and delete them, but I could click on this path and I could drag down. I can also click and drag and skew it, and I could click on the anchor point and just move from the anchor point. Now what if I wanted these two to have a unique relationship where they always move together? So in other words, I can click, shift click to select both of these and move them. But what if I always want them this relationship to each other? Then there's a feature called grouping. So in this case, we go up to Object and we go to Group. And you can see the shortcut there is Command G on a Mac. Now, even if I click away, if I click one of these, they both become selected and they both get moved. So I can't just click on this one. I can't just click on this one. They have a relationship now. What if after I did that, I decided that I wanted to move this one a little bit? Well, I could ungroup them, move it, then regroup them, but that's another feature of this direct selection tool. So if I click on just this one, I can move it. If I go back to the regular selection tool and I click, they both become selected again. Now, here's an important thing to show you. A lot of people consider that to be too tedious to have to switch selection tools. So that is why that other mode that we saw earlier exists. If I wanted to say move this one out just a little bit more, I can double click and you see how now I'm inside of this group mode. Now, if I move this and I get out of this mode, a couple quick clicks, and I click them, now back to the same grouping of them. If I ever do want to completely release the group, then I'd have to select them first, then I go up to Object, and I go to Ungroup, which Shift Command G. Now I can select one or the other. Earlier I said that when we use either one of these tools, we get some hints sometimes. So if I hover over here and I'm moving this around. Sometimes these little things will come up and they'll help me align. It'll tell me if I'm over the top of a path. When I had the direct selection tool, it would say path here, it would say anchor here. How come it's not doing that right now? Well, again, view menu. If we go to view and we go to, these are called smart guides. Hover the mouse over here, click, that puts a check mark on there. And now when I go back over here, it says path, it says anchor. And if I'm moving stuff, say around with just the regular selection tool, it'll start to show me like okay, these two are aligned. You can see that little line there towards the left. And then it starts to bring up things like here, it's telling me that it's right now equidistant from here to here and here to here. So a lot of little helpful things, but every now and then they'll kind of tick you off, get in your way, and you just go up to view, go over the check mark, release the mouse, and it will be turned off until you want it turned back on again. So far we've talked about some of the tools that by default are over here on the left. I mean, you can move them basically anywhere you want. And sometimes things get really messy in here. So before we move on and start talking about what all this stuff is over here, let's just figure out how to clean up the messes. So you can go over here to this workspace icon, hold your mouse down over it, and most of the time, at least in the beginning, you're going to want to be in Essentials. So if you're not in Essentials, change it to that. Click again and go to Reset Essentials, and that will bring you back everything in the default place that it was in. Let's move on and talk about these items over here, which are known as panels. In the essential mode, you have 3 panels by default. You have layers, which we'll talk about more, the library, which is a little bit more advanced, and you have properties. This properties menu is really good because if you click on something, it's contextual to what you clicked on. We're not going to talk about text right now, but let's just say that I had some text here and I take my selection tool and I click on it. All of the choices in here now are text related, but if I click on an object, now all of the choices in here have to do with that object. So if I click on fill here, you can see that it opens up a different way of changing colors, and I could put a different color in there. I'm going to Command Z that just so it's back to where I was. If ever you're watching an instructional video and you don't see a panel that you want, know this: they are all located under Window. So if, let's say, you needed the, let's see, what's one that's not out normally, like the brushes panel. If you needed the brushes panel, click here, and there's your brushes panel. And if you want, you can make them squeeze into here, but it kind of starts to mess with your screen real estate, but no harm, no foul. All you got to do is go back over here to your workspace icon and click, and then click on Reset Essentials, and boom, you're back. Let's talk more about some of these basic tools and things that you might want to know about them. First of all, you can hover the mouse over these and it will tell you what that current tool is, even give you some little shortcuts on how to use it. If this really bothers you, that's something you could look up how to change in the preferences. Also remember that almost any one of these, in fact, anyone with this little tiny caret next to it, that means, let me go to one, I'll go to the text one. If I click and hold down, that means that there's all these tools in there. So don't ever get too used to things looking the same. Like if you're searching and searching, like where's that ellipse tool? Remember that if it's not showing, it's probably still here, but it's just that the last one used will be the one that shows. So if I switch to ellipse, now ellipse is what shows there. A couple more things about the shape tools. You don't have to only just limit yourself to clicking and dragging to make an item. Whatever tool you have selected, you can, instead of clicking and dragging, you can find out about where you want it, and you can double click, and then you get to lock in the numbers in a more precise sense. So if I wanted the width to be 1.5 inches. Hit the tab key, set the height to 1.5 inches, and click OK. Then where I clicked, I'm going to get a perfect circle, or whatever else I dialed in. Maybe I dialed in a super wide. Let's try that. Let's double click over here, and let's change the width to 3. Then I get exactly what I dialed in. I'm getting a little filled up over here on this artboard, so I'll take the hand tool and I'll just swipe over here to give me some new space. And if I go over here, hold the mouse down, and let's say I want a polygon, I can click, drag, I get a polygon. What if I want a different amount of sides on it? I'm going to do the same thing I showed you just a second ago. With the polygon tool selected, I'm going to come over here, double click, and now I can change, for example, from 6 sides to 8 sides. And when I click OK, it'll make one, but I can also, next time I draw one, it will be with 8 sides until I change that. In a similar nature is the star tool. Click and drag, you get a star, but what if you want more points or a different kind of look to the star? Again, just double click instead, and then you have radius 1, which is the overall diameter of the star. So let's change that to 2, and we'll change the inside diameter to 1, and we'll change it to, say, 7 points. Click OK. So we're going to get a 7-pointed star. This is our outside diameter. This is our inside diameter. So if we wanted a really, instead of these more traditional looking stars, we wanted something with really elongated points, then what we have to do is make sure that there's a big difference between the inside and outside diameter. So if I change the inside diameter to very small now, I'll go like say 0.05, click OK. All right, in the next video, I'll show you how to put some of these things you've learned here together to make a page of thumbnail frames.